Hello, everybody. So, yes, as Dot said, I'm here to talk to you about Broadcasting America, which is going to be launched very soon. So that's very exciting. Um, Excuse me, I'll find my notes here. So, yes, so this project is allowing students to explore the history of 20th century American broadcasting through the papers and through the lens, really, of pioneer David Sarnoff and the Radio Corporation of America. You can chart the transformation of radio from one-to-one communication to a means of broadcasting to the masses, study the development of television and other broadcasting technologies, and really witness the impact of broadcasting innovations on topics such as manufacturing, advertising, consumer culture, censorship, global conflicts, and the space race. Some key data for you here. We have taken content from two archives for this particular resource. One is continuing our long-standing relationship with the Hagley Museum and Library. So this is where the David Sarnoff Library now resides. And from there, we've also taken some collections to do with advertising and showcasing other kind of companies' involvement in the broadcasting industry. All of this is then supplemented by a fantastic pamphlet collection that has been taken from the Special Collections and University Archives of the University of Maryland. This gives a really broad industry-wide look at broadcasting from the kind of 1920s all the way through to the 1980s, and covers topics such as market research, censorship debates, how to appeal to certain demographics, like how to make programs for children or for women. And is a really fantastic accompaniment to all the papers to do with the Radio Corporation of America and David Sarnoff's archives. We have a range of contextual features, as always, that we are publishing with this resource. So we have a mixture of in-house written pieces and those that have been commissioned from academics in the field. Part of the focus of this particular resource is supporting students in understanding some of the technology of this particular topic. So this is where the glossary comes in, and also looking at biographies and company histories to really provide some context to all the different key players that will appear in the documents, and allowing students to really understand the importance of those people and to understand the more scientific aspects of the topic as well. Key themes, as you can see there, is looking at the development of technology through radio and television, looking at the corporate history of the Radio Corporation of America. And then, as I said, with the pamphlet collections, we're looking at audience reception studies, consumer products and marketing, debates over censorship and ethics, which continue to this day as to what is appropriate to broadcast on the television and on the radio. And then also the links between broadcasting and global current affairs. Some highlights for you from the collection. So we have the full run of RCA company periodical broadcast news and also the RCA annual reports. These have lots of details of RCA employees and different broadcasting stations, and they also cover developments in technology and the broadcasting of different program types. Intended as an internal publication with a general readership, they're a really excellent introduction to key scientific and technical developments for those without a background in this area. So they're a fantastic entry point for students in this particular topic. And they provide plenty of human interest stories and photographs too. We also have an extensive collection of speech transcripts from David Sarnoff. Sarnoff was a really prolific speech giver, particularly in the latter half of his career. And his speeches are often very prophetic about the potential future of the broadcasting industry. They discuss early concepts of television, video calling, emails, and his speeches also give further insight into the influence of RCA beyond manufacturing and broadcasting for the general public. So we have a selection of speeches that were given during the Cold War, and they demonstrate Sarnoff's connections with the US government and the military, and his hopes for the use of American broadcasting technology to further US foreign policy during this period. The industry-wide advertisements that we have are a really fantastic way of tracing the evolution of radio and television technology. So you can see both the technical developments here, but also the creation of a consumer market. So early radio adverts often focus on the amateur radioist who was building their own machines at home and wanted to buy the latest components. But later you can see the audience becomes more of what we would see as a typical consumer. So products are increasingly marketed for their aesthetics or their domestic value. Consumers are no longer expected to understand how the products are made, and instead they should purchase the latest design. And so this also demonstrates the shift from amateurs who built their own radio sets with the capability to broadcast to their local area to consumers who would purchase receivers, which were intended to receive signals and play content produced by broadcasters and networks. We also have a fantastic range of photograph collections from RCA. These are fantastic for looking at the corporate history of the company. We can see the manufacturing arm of it, as well as the actual broadcast studio settings. The files on patent disputes are particularly interesting. So RCA and most of the broadcasting companies, to be honest, were regularly involved in disputes over patents. The broadcasting industry itself had quite a complicated beginning, and everything was quite kind of muddy in terms of who owned the rights to certain inventions. And certain corporations like RCA were very ready to protect their own interests, and therefore were involved in a lot of legislative patent disputes. So these files offer an insight into that complex world, and you can see the impact of the outcomes of those on the scientists and on the corporations too. And then finally, I've highlighted some documents relating to the space race and to satellite communications. And this again demonstrates RCA's involvements with interests beyond public entertainment and public broadcasting. They worked with NASA in the development of cameras for use on the Apollo programs, as well as technology for lunar probes and satellite technology, which was initially for meteorological observations and then later for the development of cable television. Finally, I just wanted to highlight a particular topic really within the resource. So one of the fantastic parts of this is looking at radio and television firsts, and this particular one is the first live public mass broadcast of a sporting event, but to be honest, basically the first live public mass broadcast that existed. This took place in 1921, and it was used by David Sarnoff to demonstrate the potential of mass broadcasting to his managers at RCA, and it was the broadcast of the Dempsey-Carpentier boxing match, named as one of the fights of the century for the 20s. And it's interesting really because it was a curious blend of a commercial broadcaster, so RCA, and working with amateur radioists. So this is Sarnoff trying to demonstrate the potential of it, because RCA actually didn't have the technical capabilities at this stage to do mass broadcasting. So they worked with volunteers around the US using their equipment to enable loudspeaker sound. They set up radios in public spaces, and set up around 100 mini radio stations to play the broadcast, to transmit the signals. It was broadcast to theatres, halls, homes, ships. At least 350,000 people are estimated to have listened in live. And interestingly, RCA were not allowed to broadcast directly from the arena. So the commentator would be speaking throughout the match. His words were then telegraphed to an engineer nearby, who then read them out over the radio. So it's an interesting connection between the older technology of telegraphy and then the burgeoning industry of live broadcasting. It was also the first time that radio was used for live news, so those listening in heard the results much quicker than those who would wait for a newspaper to be printed. And it's an interesting example of the kind of earliest step of mass broadcasting. You can see the types of technology that were involved, the collaborative nature of the early industry, because it was also new and people were very much focused on very specific areas, the involvement of amateurs, and the challenge of increasing your audience. So on the slide here, you can see some images from the project about this event. You can see an analysis of some of the audience attendances. There are photographs of engineers setting up the equipment, and then on the far right you can see Jack Dempsey himself listening to what was called a radio music box. And above that is a letter from David Sarnoff, which references his radio music box dream. This is his idea, slated as the first conception of consumer radio, and was supposedly put forward in a memo of about 1915 or 1916, although that's become a subject of controversy because nobody's found the original, just slightly later references to it. But through all of this, you can really see what a pioneer David Sarnoff was, and a real visionary in this field. He was able to see the potential for technology, and as he moved up through the RCA ranks, he was able to employ the right people to carry out his visions. So this live broadcast was the start of a mass media industry that we all benefit from today, for our entertainment, for our education, for our communications. I'm very much looking forward to this product being launched and for the research potential that it will enable, and I hope that you will enjoy exploring it too. Thank you very much.